If you're a veteran and you are looking to potentially purchase a house utilizing your VA loan and you haven't really heard what's been going on in the news lately, you need to pay attention and watch this entire video. Now I'm gonna make this short and sweet so you're not stuck around for a ton of time just watching me ramble on. Now if you haven't been paying attention to the news lately, there's been a little bit of an adjustment or soon to be adjustment / change in kind of how real estate agents are compensated. Now why does that exactly matter for any veterans trying to utilize their VA loan? Well, it's gonna make a lot more sense here once I get to the thick of things. And I'm just gonna make things simple for you. Essentially what happened was there was a lawsuit that was won on behalf of essentially all sellers and buyers. The nitty-gritty detail is not necessarily something I have to go in full detail with, but essentially we needed to, as agents, which I personally do on a daily basis with my job anyways, but apparently there have been a lot of real estate agents that haven't been fully transparent in terms of how their fee structure really has come about. And what that means is typically a seller is going to pay commission, meaning I meet with you as a seller, I talk with you about what your house is worth, I discuss with you what we can likely net you given the fact that you're going to be paying me to list your house, but also potentially a buyer's agent, meaning if someone brings in a client to your house, you're also going to be paying the buyer's agent's fee. Not that it's required, it's never been required, but that's just been the assumption from the general population. Now the issue is the general population has, I guess, never truly understood that all of this has always been negotiable. Meaning if a seller reaches out to me and wants me to list their home for 500 bucks, I can say yes or no, or vice versa. I can say, hey, I'm gonna list your home for $5,000, and you can say yes or no. Or we can ultimately negotiate somewhere in between and we can come up with a price that you are comfortable listing it at and I'm comfortable taking the compensation in which you may pay me. So when I say a seller typically pays a listing commission, they will also typically pay a buyer's commission. Now on the other side of things, if you have a buyer and you bring that buyer to a house, that buyer is generally not going to be paying you as a buyer agent any fees. They would incur that when they eventually turn around and sell the home, but really that buyer's fees are only going to be in accordance with their loan. They're not going to be paying a buyer's agent's fee. And once again, this is a clear disclaimer here. All of this has always been negotiable. But the bigger issue here has been negotiating in regards to compensation / commission. Meaning, I'll give you an example here. I'm representing you as a buyer. You want to purchase a house, but they aren't offering a commission. If you are utilizing an FHA loan, if you're utilizing cash, if you're utilizing a conventional loan, I can negotiate against the listing agent as well as the seller and say, hey, they want to pay $300,000, which is the list price, but they don't want to pay my commission. So I'm going to negotiate $5,000, and that $5,000 is going to be given to my client, who will then pay me as commission, essentially having the buyer not ultimately pay anything because that's what they want me to negotiate for them. Now this is where it all comes full circle. Well, the VA has always stipulated as a rule that a buyer's agent cannot negotiate commission to be paid by the veteran. Now, what does that exactly mean? Well, the example that I just gave you, a $300,000 house that you want to see and you want to use your given right to utilize that VA loan that you earned, but you also want to utilize me as your buyer's agent. Well, this particular house is not paying a buyer's agent's commission. Well, we no longer can have that situation where I negotiate $5,000 for the seller to pay you, the buyer, and then have you pay me. Because again, the VA does not allow the buyer to pay the buyer's agent's commission. So the freestanding issue here is now if you want to utilize your VA loan, which to be honest with you, and is a sad part, a lot of listing agents and sellers already discredit a VA loan, which is just absolutely ridiculous and a whole nother video in itself. But you're already kind of at a disadvantage utilizing your VA loan because most people are inadequate at doing their jobs and see zero money down. Okay, they're not qualified. They're not very qualified, at least, because they don't have enough money or really any money to put down. No, that's wrong. You're just utilizing that gift that you were given, being the VA loan. I can put my money elsewhere, put no money down, and reinvest that money elsewhere that will make me far more money than whatever interest rate I'm charged on my VA loan. So yeah, I'm gonna put 0% down or zero money down on any house that I utilize or purchase with my VA loan. It's just common sense. But the downside is not all listing agents and sellers understand that. So you're already kind of at a disadvantage whether or not some agents wanna say you are or are not. I'm a veteran, I've utilized my VA loan twice. I understand, having helped tons of veterans myself too, that I have to have this conversation conversation with regularly about how well qualified my veterans are, or my particular client that is a veteran, how well qualified that particular client is. And now you add on the fact that not only are you kind of at a disadvantage with the VA loan, but with things changing effectively July, and they've technically pushed it back to August now, that commission is no longer going to be publicly noted, meaning the buyer's agent's commission is not going to be something that is openly discussed. In order for me to know whether or not that client is actually even offering a commission, I have to reach out to the agent and directly ask them, hey, that $300,000 house, my client loves it, they want to pursue it, are you paying a buyer's agent commission? Is your seller paying a buyer's agent commission? And in this case, just like before, they're going to sit there and say no. Well, right now, if they say no, I can't negotiate for my buyer a commission to be paid for me. So essentially what it's forcing people to do, or specifically veterans, is approach a listing agent directly, because I no longer can be compensated, approach the listing agent directly and want to transact without representation. And the easiest way for me to put this is, if you were looking to get divorced, would you represent yourself without an attorney? I'm not saying I'm on the same level as an attorney, but my sole purpose is to protect you as the buyer. And if you go directly to the listing agent or directly to the seller, neither of those two people have your best interest in mind, essentially putting you in a position of a ton of different liabilities moving forward. Now, in a letter to the VA, the MBA stressed that veteran borrowers will be disadvantaged if they lack the ability to compensate real estate agents. As I discussed, you now, if you're wanting to utilize your VA loan, are going to be at an even bigger disadvantage. Well, the whole purpose of this video, though, is to provide you, the veteran, with some good news and an update here for you. Well, the good news is, at a recent real estate conference in New York, a director with the VA announced the fact that the VA will soon release a circular that bridges the gap on agency law that prohibits a VA buyer from paying their real estate agent compensation. A VA official announced on just Tuesday this week. So the good news is we have a little bit of time leading up to August, when kind of the real estate compensation game changes. Well, the good news is, by the middle of June, we're going to have an adjustment made, basically allowing veteran buyers to compensate their buyer's agents. Now, the good part here is I am still going to be a huge advocate of negotiating on behalf of my buyer to have the seller always compensate me. But in that rare case where I represent a buyer, they want to and are comfortable paying me a buyer's agent's commission, the good news here is they are now going to be able to do so, versus before they essentially would not be able to pursue that house unless they pursued that house unrepresented. Now, all of this news kind of came out in March, and one of the biggest questions was exactly this. Veterans essentially are going to get screwed. They can't pay for buyer's agents because it's a rule that the VA has. So if someone wants to use their VA loan, the seller isn't paying a buyer's agent's commission, then the veteran himself is not going to be able to pursue that house unless they pursue it with a ton of liability on their back, not being represented with a buyer's agent. But the good news is, mid-June, we're going to have a solution for this, hopefully moving forward, where that is no longer the case. And the example that I gave earlier in this video is going to be true to all loans, meaning your VA loan, your FHA loan, conventional, or cash. Any of those four options can still have you negotiating on my end as a buyer's agent to either have my buyer pay my commission or the seller pay the commission at the end of the day. So yes, huge news, and definitely positive news for all veterans out there that are looking to potentially utilize their VA loan, because it is the hands down best loan that you can use out there. Unfortunately, we were all kind of worried about whether or not it was going to be a disadvantage for us as veterans wanting to use their VA loan, since this would not be an option. But it sounds like the VA is doing what they should, adjusting the criteria and allowing that to take place. So as much as this industry may be changing, it doesn't really ultimately change much in my business. I'm still going to negotiate the heck out of any kind of listing agent or seller that I may come across representing my buyer. And this is just going to continue to provide me with opportunities to continue to give any and all veterans that I assist in the home buying process. Thanks again for watching, guys. Make sure to like and subscribe. It really does help. And stay tuned for the next video.